I'm Adrian Seet, and this is Nightline, news making the headlines. Yayasan Akal Budi corruption charges. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi granted discharge not amounting to acquittal. And 1MDB scandal, assets worth more than 90 million ringgit seized from Jasmine Liu. Thanks for joining us. After 4 years of trial, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi has been granted a discharge not amounting to an acquittal, DNAA, by the Kuala Lumpur High Court on all his corruption charges for misappropriating funds belonging to Yayasan Akal Budi. Justice Datuk Colin Lawrence Sequeira made the ruling after the prosecution applied for the DNAA following the Attorney General's Chambers AGC's decision to temporarily suspend the trial pending further investigations into the case. Datuk Sequeira gave the ruling after hearing submissions from the prosecution and defence. The DNAA means that the prosecution has the option to refile the charges or reinstate the case at a later time if new evidence or circumstances warrant it. Before concluding the court proceedings, the judge also stressed that it would be a waste of time and taxpayers' money if the prosecution later decides not to proceed with the charges. Earlier, Deputy Public Prosecutor Datuk Muhammad Dusuki Mokhtar submitted 11 reasons for the DNAA application. Amongst them, he said, was because the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC was still investigating the charges after the Bagan Dato' MP had sent letters of representation to the AGC and the Anti-Graft Agency to drop the charges earlier this year. Dato' Dusuki also said Dato' Sri Zahid had raised a very serious issue in his letters of representation, primarily regarding the allegation that he was a victim of selective prosecution by the previous government. Dato' Sri Zahid's counsel, Dato' Hisham Teh Potek, however, asked the judge to consider a full acquittal instead, as no timeline had been given by the prosecution to complete its investigations. The UMNO president is facing 47 charges of criminal breach of trust, bribery and money laundering involving the Akal Budi funds. Dato' Hisham later told reporters that they would file an appeal for Dato' Sri Zahid's full acquittal at the Court of Appeal on Tuesday. Meanwhile, when speaking to the media, Dato' Sri Zahid hoped that there will be no more politically motivated charges following the High Court's decision to grant a DNAA on all his 47 of his charges relating to the Akal Budi Fund.
Tugas kami di dalam UMNO dan Barisan Nasional adalah untuk meneruskan perjuangan ini supaya lemparan tuduhan yang selama ini bermotifkan politik dapat dan telah dihentikan.
He also expressed his gratitude to his family members, lawyers, UMNO and Barisan Nasional members who had given him their full support throughout the duration of the case. 2 Pablo Picasso paintings, luxury watches and high-end condominiums in New York, London, the United States and Switzerland were amongst the assets seized by the police from the former One Malaysia Development Berhad 1MDB lawyer Jasmine Liu Aiswan. Deputy Inspector General of Police Datuk Sri Ayub Khan Maidin Piche said the assets worth 93.2 million ringgit were believed to have been acquired using funds embezzled from 1MDB. According to Datuk Sri Ayub, the assets were declared by the police by Lu, who is a former associate of fugitive financier Lau Tek Jo, who is better known as Joe Low. He said that based on investigations, Lu was offered a position in the company in 2011 and received a salary of 40,000 ringgit a month. He also said on July the 17th, police had seized various items worth 625,500 ringgit from a condominium unit in Bukit Damansara, which was used as a location to store the assets. Amongst the items seized were a Richard Mille and a Harry Winston luxury watch, 13 handbags of various luxury brands, a bracelet and documents. Datuk Sri Ayub added that Lu also owns several assets in Singapore, including a bank account at Credit Suisse AG with a balance of 4 million Singapore dollars and BSI Bank Singapore with a balance not yet identified, as well as 2 condominium units worth 1.3 million Singapore dollars and 2.5 million Singapore dollars.
Satu akaun berkanun SD telah ditandatangani pada 23 Ogos 2023 oleh Jasmine untuk mengembalikan aset atas yang di atas yang disebut tadi kepada syarikat 1MDB. Dan SD berkenaan kita telah serahkan kepada pihak Commercial Crime Affairs Department CAD Singapura pada 30 Ogos.
Datuk Sri Ayub also said the process of acquiring the other assets and properties are still ongoing in the United States and in the United Kingdom. Any legal action against her will be decided once authorities have concluded their investigations. Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim has arrived in Indonesia's capital city to attend the 43rd ASEAN Summit and related summits that kicks off on Tuesday. The plane carrying the Prime Minister and his wife, Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Aziza Wan Ismail, landed at the Soekarno-Hatta International Airport in Tangerang, Banten at 3:28 p.m. local time. The Prime Minister was received by Indonesia's Communications and Information Minister Budi Ari Setiadi, Malaysian Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Zamri Abdul Kadir, and Malaysia's Ambassador to Indonesia, Datuk Syed Mat Hasrin Tengku Husin. Datuk Sri Anwar is leading the Malaysian delegation to the 43rd ASEAN Summit and related summits here from September the 5th to the 7th, which is his second after the 42nd ASEAN Summit in Labuan Bajo. This is his first summit with the 7 ASEAN dialogue partners, namely Australia, China, Japan, India, South Korea, the United States and Canada. During the summits, 11 bilateral meetings have been scheduled, including with South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, United States Vice President Kamala Harris, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. In the meantime, Datuk Sri Zamri said ASEAN's foreign ministers will propose to the regional bloc's top leaders to continue with its intention to review the 5-point consensus, 5PC, on the Myanmar issue. He said this was vital considering Myanmar's military regime's continued stance to put up barriers in putting the 5PC into action.
Masih belum dapat laksanakan secara lebih berkesan, memandangkan halangan-halangan yang dikenakan oleh pihak junta di Myanmar.
The minister was speaking to reporters after attending the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Jakarta on Monday, held ahead of the 43rd ASEAN Summits and related summits, which begins on Tuesday. The 5PC, amongst others, calls for an immediate end to violence and the provision of humanitarian assistance to Myanmar. There had been no significant progress on the implementation of the consensus since it was agreed upon in April 2021. Datuk Sri Zamri said the new proposal package has been outlined and is presently with the Secretary-General. It will be forwarded to the leaders of the countries to deliberate over and finalize at their meeting during the current summit, which runs until Thursday. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Datuk Muhammad Naim Mokhtar, advised those involved in the Pulai parliamentary by-election to refrain from manipulating religious and racial sentiments. As an institution responsible for protecting the sanctity of Islam in the country, he said his ministry is very concerned about certain groups issuing statements condemning those with differing beliefs. Following a recent statement by a political leader declaring it a sin to vote for a candidate contesting in the by-election, Datuk Naim in a statement said such a situation will sow the seeds of even more serious divisions and threaten the security of the nation. He said the matter could lead to misunderstandings within the community and tarnish the sanctity of Islamic teachings, while also expressing concern about the tendency of those who issue Sharia-related rulings arbitrarily without the necessary discipline. He also called upon all parties to be responsible in respecting the sanctity of Islam, preserving the unity and peace of the multi-ethnic and multi-religious society in the country. According to media reports, Per-Ikatan National Chairman Tan Sri Muhydin Yassin was reported to have declared it haram for those who vote for a candidate from an opposing party in the Pulai parliamentary by-election. In the meantime, the police have launched an investigation into Tan Sri Muhydin over the latter's haram fatwa remarks. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Muhydin Yassin said the investigation is currently being carried out by Bukit Aman's Classified Crime Investigation Unit under its Criminal Investigation Department. It is believed that a report against Tan Sri Muhydin was made at the police headquarters on Sunday. Tan Sri Muhydin said the case will be investigated under Section 505, subsection B of the Penal Code for issuing a statement that could cause alarm and public fear. The investigation was also being carried out in line with Section 223 of the Communications and Multimedia Act, 1998. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Ayub Khan Maidin Pishay said police will propose to the Attorney General's Chambers, AGC, to charge past President Tan Sri Abdul Hadi Awang, who was believed to have disputed the authority of the Pardons Board in the recent ceramah in Muar Johor. The Deputy Inspector General of Police said that they are recommending charges under the Sedition Act and the Communications and Multimedia Act.
Tugas polis menyiapkan siasatan dan kertas siasatan. Kita akan panjangkan ke pihak AGC dengan cadangan untuk dituduh bawah atas hasutan Seksyen 4 dan juga 233. Sama ada akan dituduh, tak dituduh, setuju, dituju, itu bergantung kepada penilaian pejabat peguam negara nanti.
Commenting on the process of recording Tan Sri Hadi's statement earlier, Datuk Sri Ayub said that only 5 of the 24 questions asked by the police were answered by the Marang MP. The police were also told that the rest of the questions would be answered by Tan Sri Hadi in court. The DIGP added that the investigation papers would be completed within a week. On Monday, investing officers from Bukit Aman recorded Tan Sri Hadi's statement over his alleged remarks on the Pardons Board, which is linked to the Royal Institution on August 26. The interview process, which was carried out by PAS headquarters in Kuala Lumpur, took about an hour from 11:15 a.m. A total of 927 police personnel are eligible to cast their votes as early voters for the Pulai parliamentary by-election on Tuesday. According to the Election Commission EC, 46 of them will cast their votes at the polling centre at the operations room of the Kempas Police Station, while 881 police personnel will cast their votes at the Nusantara Hall of the Region 2 Marine Police Headquarters. The polling centres will open simultaneously at 8 a.m, with the one at the Kempas Police Station to close at noon, while the one at the Marine Police Headquarters to close at 5 p.m. The Pulai parliamentary by-election is held simultaneously with the Simpang Jeram State by-election. However, there is no early polling for the Simpang Jeram State by-election. Polling day for both by-elections has been set for September the 9th.
Dah redah punya redah, suluh punya suluh. Boom! Nampak satu jasad dalam sungai itu.
Temui dalam parit ladang kelapa sawit Tikam Batu, perhampiran Taman Ru.
Cara mereka buat kat arwah adik ni memang kata cara binatang lah kan.
Fail Mahkamah, Rabu 9 malam di TV3 dan stream secara HD di Tonton.
Coming up after this breather, scores of people injured after Typhoon Haikui hits Taiwan. than 70 people were injured in Taiwan after Typhoon Haikui ripped across the nation, uprooting trees and forcing thousands to evacuate. As of Monday, 78 people had reported injuries from the storm, mostly in cities and counties in southern Taiwan, where Haikui made landfall twice on Monday. Most of the injuries reported across the country were sustained during traffic accidents caused by fallen trees. The storm also caused blackouts in parts of Taiwan, and some 33,740 households were still without power as of Monday morning. The Agriculture Ministry has issued a high-level advisory for mudslides in 125 areas around Taiwan, mostly in eastern Taiwan, saying they could occur soon due to the heavy rain, and are urging immediate evacuation. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak could face the prospect of another difficult election for a potential vacant seat in Parliament after a lawmaker lost an appeal against a proposed 8-week suspension for groping two men at a London club. Chris Pincher, who now sits as an independent, was suspended from the ruling Conservative Party by then Prime Minister Boris Johnson last year after being accused of sexual misconduct. Under British parliamentary ethics rules, a lawmaker facing a lengthy suspension can be removed by a petition from constituents, forcing a special election to fill the seat. Parliament will now vote on whether to approve the 8-week suspension, and if more than 10% of Pincher's constituents sign a recall petition, he will lose his job. Asked if Pincher should resign, Sunak's spokesman said the government was clear about the importance of integrity, professionalism and accountability, but it was a personal decision if he should resign. Now, China on Monday indicated that its leader Xi Jinping will skip an important gathering of world leaders in New Delhi this weekend, marking the first time China's top leader has skipped a G20 summit. At a regular news conference on Monday, China's foreign ministry said Premier Li Qiang would attend the summit without mentioning Xi. Asked on the reason for Xi's non-attendance, spokesperson for the ministry Mao Ning only sidestepped the question from the media. US President Joe Biden, in the meantime, said he is disappointed that Xi plans to skip the upcoming summit as the two superpowers seek to stabilize their rocky relations. Xi and Biden, whose governments are attempting to repair ties after years of deteriorating relations and continuing setbacks, last met in person in November on the sidelines of the G20 in Indonesia. The leader of a coup that ousted Gabon's president Ali Bongo Ondimba was sworn in as interim president on Monday, taking control for an unspecified period overthrowing the country's 55-year Bongo dynasty. Now, General Brice Oligui Nguema took the oath at 11 a.m. local time on Monday as the so-called transition president. However, other countries have not acknowledged Nguema as Gabon's legitimate leader, and he faces pressure to spell out his plans for restoring civilian rule. It was reported that leaders of the Central African Regional Bloc, ECCAS, are due to meet in person on Monday to discuss their response to the ouster. Gabon's main opposition group, Alternance 2023, has also called on the international community to encourage the junta to hand back power to civilians, claiming it is the rightful winner of the August 26 election. Military officers led by Nguema previously seized power on August 30th, minutes after an announcement that Ali Bongo had secured a third term in an election, a result they annulled and said was not credible. sports football, the German Bundesliga. RB Leipzig struck 3 times in a strong second-half performance to ease past 10-man Union Berlin 3-0. After a goalless first half, Xavi Simons opened the scoring for Leipzig in the 51st minute with an excellent curling strike that found the top corner of the net. Simons then set up Benjamin Sesko to make it 2-0 in the 85th minute before the forward wrapped up the win with a third 2 minutes later for the Marco Rose's side. With 2 wins and a defeat for both teams, they join a 6-way third place separated by goal differences. Turning to tennis, the 2023 US Open. Novak Djokovic was in no mood for another 5-setter, snuffing out a spirited challenge from big-hitting Croatian qualifier Borna Gojo. Second-seeded Djokovic settled into a more comfortable straight-sets win, dismissing the Croat 6-2, 7-5, 6-4 to secure a spot in the quarterfinals and tally his 85th win on the courts of Flushing Meadows. The Serb committed just 12 unforced errors, compared to 40 by the 105th ranked Gojo, who had his serve broken 5 times before the second seed closed out the contest with his 12th ace. Next up for Djokovic is top-ranked American and 9th seed Taylor Fritz. Earlier, Fritz continued the American charge with his 4th consecutive straight-sets win to reach the quarterfinals. The 9th seed eased past Swiss qualifier Dominic Stricker 7-6, 6-4, 6-4 to secure his place in the last 8 as he bid to become the first American man to win a Grand Slam singles title in 2 decades. Also through to the quarterfinals was Frances Tiafoe. The 25-year-old American brushed past Australian wildcard entry Rinki Hijikata 6-4, 6-1, 6-4 in 2 hours flat. Tiafoe will face unseeded Ben Shelton in the quarterfinals. When we return, a jobless man charged with killing father. Stay tuned. Staying with us. Something big is happening in Kuching, Sarawak. The country's largest state is now testing its new autonomous rapid transit system, ART or ART. The mammoth ART dwarfs any vehicle on the road, but its size is not the only reason why it is making headlines. FMT's Jason Desmond has the story.
Sarawak's new hydrogen-powered smart trams are a work of art in more ways than one. They're not just easy on the eye, but on the environment too, as many in Kuching found out themselves during a recent test run. The Sarawak government is pinning its hopes on these futuristic-looking and flexible vehicles to take public transport in the state to the next level.
Flexibility here is good in the sense that whenever the demand pattern change, you can reroute the services to a higher demand corridor as and when needed. So even for small towns and cities, this form of public transport can be useful in satisfying the demand that cannot be met by other type of public transport like taxis and buses.
Unlike trains that run on tracks, the China-made ART vehicles will run on dedicated lanes along existing roads. Rosalie said this means significant savings on infrastructure costs, which will translate into lower fares.
The investment in hydrogen tram is quite limited in the sense that it made use of existing roads, and even if the authorities were to design dedicated roadways for hydrogen tram, the costs are quite minimal as compared to, say, building LRT or MRT. And with low investment, obviously the ticket price will be quite cheap and affordable by a lot more people.
Former Land Public Transport Commission official Wan Agil Wan Hassan lauded the Sarawak government for using hydrogen-powered trams. Hydrogen is being hailed as a game-changer in the energy sector, and Wan Agil said its use in the ART makes it a cleaner and greener alternative to electricity. The long lifespan of hydrogen cells also makes them a more dependable fuel source.
Countries in the Western start moving towards hydro. And I think if we are not ready to invest, we might be left behind.
Sarawak's ART is the world's first hydrogen-powered smart tram system, and the people of Kuching will be the first to ride it once it is operational at the end of 2025. Jason Desmond, FMT for Nightline.
In other news, an unemployed man has been charged at the Petaling Jaya Magistrates Court on Monday with murdering his father at a house in Taman Datuk Hormat last month. 40-year-old M. Jaisino was alleged to have murdered his father, 74-year-old E. Mangalam, at 2:15 a.m. on August 26. Jaisino, who was unrepresented, nodded after the charge was read out to him before Magistrate Shahril Anwar Ahmad Mustafa, but no plea was recorded as the case is under the jurisdiction of the High Court. Deputy Public Prosecutor Nurul Sofia Jaisal did not offer bail, stressing that it was a non-bailable offence. The accused has been charged under Section 302 of the Penal Code, which carries the death penalty upon conviction. The court fixed October the 6th for mention. On August 29th, the suspect had been detained by police for allegedly bludgeoning his father to death with a shovel after being frequently reprimanded by the victim for being jobless. The body of his father was later found wrapped in a curtain by family members on the roadside around the PJS-10 area. In Kelantan, a 46-year-old man is being remanded for 7 days from Monday, pending an investigation into his involvement in a fight on Sunday, during which a male civil servant was beaten to death. The police obtained the remand order from Magistrate Amal Razim Alias at the Tanah Merah Magistrates Court. According to Kelantan Police Chief Dato' Muhammad Zaki Harun, the two men were involved in a fight at the restaurant along Jalan Lama Pasir Putih Machang, opposite the Machang Hospital at about 11 a.m. on Sunday. The civil servant, who was 51, was badly injured in the face and eyes and suffered broken ribs, while the suspect had injuries on both hands. The civil servant was then taken to the Machang Hospital in an ambulance but died while receiving treatment. It was believed that no weapons were used in the fight. The case is being investigated under Section 302 of the Penal Code. As Nightline draws to a close this time around, let's take a look as Egypt inaugurates Old Cairo's historic Ben Ezra Synagogue and the Babylon Fortress after the completion of a restoration project. I'm Adrian Seet. Thank you for watching and have a great week ahead.